Welcome everybody. Thank you for your prompt and early sitting downness. As I will remind you all before we go through the bits on the agenda, what will tend to look like a shorter meeting than it might have been. I can tell the atmosphere is palpable, the excitement pre the earlier announcement, but we'll come to that. So if we remember, we had to question the process, not just the answer, which I think might be quite valuable today. We're not going to rerun or prejudge a full council meeting, which has now been cancelled next week anyway. What I do really want to remind everyone, if you're not adding, then don't bother, turn your microphone off. But I do welcome pointed questions. Bear in mind as well, if you want answer to a lengthy question, it's probably going to be a written response, so keep them nice and meaningful so you get as much out of this meeting as possible. And read the forward plan and ask questions around it, because we've got time on that since we changed the agenda. So, in terms of the minutes, the agenda, we're going to do sign off the minutes, check for any declarations of interest. We have had quite a lot of written questions from the public, of which a written response will be made, and we have one gentleman in the gallery, so that'll be about 5 minutes. Progress update, 5 minutes. Committee's work plan and work programme, 10 to 15 minutes. We've got an update from Claire on the council website, which will be about 10 to 15 minutes. Whilst we're not going to discuss the island plan itself, I think it's probably worthwhile spending 15 minutes or so discussing the process, but I will limit to the process, not any of the detail, because we don't know the detail now. Then the important one, Phil's got the spotlight for the petition for traffic lights on Forest Road, probably 20 minutes so we can have a good discussion around that. And then finally 15 minutes for any members' questions. So if anybody's got an issue with that, please raise that now. Other than that, is everyone happy for me to approve the minutes? Do I have a proposer from last time around? Thank you. Yeah, the second, yeah, we're there, so I can sign that. It's initial the front. There we go. Any declarations of interest? Everybody was very interested until 3 o'clock, I know that. Public question time. Mr. McLeod, would you like to read your question out? If you press your microphone, the button on there, and it's for people tuning in from there, sir. Did the red light come on? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. McLeod. I would refer that to you, Councillor Fuller, as the Cabinet Holder for Housing.
Thank you very much. As Mr. McLeod will be aware, there was quite comprehensive consultation on the Regulation 18 aspect of the island plan. What I think I know Mr. McLeod has been in touch with the planning officers with respect to the Benbridge allocations, and I would not like to comment on those because I don't know what response yet that Mr. Brewer has given to Mr. McLeod. So I would request that a written response is given in response to the question about the settlement boundaries with respect to Benbridge. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McLeod.
Okay, thank you for your question, sir. Okay, moving on to...
Did you want to refer to the written questions?
Yes, sorry. So I don't know if you've all got a copy of the written questions that were received.
We would have done. No.
So, what do we want to offer them?
A point of order question. Given that if a member of the public takes the time to come to corporate scrutiny and he writes a written question which is served within the time limit, the Constitution, as I understand it, does say that a reply should be given in the meeting. It doesn't encourage, if I may say so, for replies to be made in this way by Councillor Fuller, effectively not answering the question when the time limits have been complied with.
You're probably quite right, but it wasn't a written question. It was a verbal question.
Oh, I'm
Just
so
received.
sorry. I thought you said it was a written question.
No, this is the written questions that you haven't. So
Oh,
there's
well,
a very lengthy. I mean,
sorry.
I can read all these out, but I think we'll be here till tomorrow, or what would have been full council next week. So what would you propose we do these?
Chairman, as you referred to, we've got, I think it's 16 questions from members of the public. And we have got a response kindly provided by Councillor Fuller to each and every one of those. And in terms of normal practice, what we would do, we would send those out to the individuals concerned. So they've got a written reply to their written question. They'll appear on the council's website, and we will send those out to all members of the council.
So yes, you're quite right. There is a written response for all those, Councillor Spink. Okay. So in terms of progress update, it's really for noting on pages 9 to 12. Is there anything particular? Anybody had any questions around anything that they had spotted that they'd like some further information on? If there's anything that screams out that you believe should have been dealt with that hasn't, let us know, and we will seek clarification. Anybody? Okay. Councillor Cook.
Sorry, on the first page you've got the floating bridge, and it says that there will be an update when everything's resolved. It looks as if the resolution might be some time coming, and I think maybe we should have an interim update at some point if it's not likely that this is going to be resolved in the next couple of months.
Councillor Jordan, would you like to respond?
Thank you. Update on floating bridges that we continue to mediate with the other two parties. The gap between our estimation of costs and losses has narrowed, and we are within the realms of achieving an agreement without the need to resort to court action. That's where we are at the moment. That doesn't mean to say that we've reached an agreement, but we have narrowed significantly since the initial mediation meeting that we carried out. There's not much more I can tell you. The floating bridge will be back in service subject to the MCA inspection being okay on 23rd of April.
And don't put words in your mouth, Chris, but I think what Chris was after is an interim update on where we are, because we're a bit worried it could be quite a lengthy period of time before it's resolved.
Chair, I really wouldn't want to say any more about the legal wranglings and negotiations that are going on than I've done already.
Chair, could I just ask Councillor Jordan, last time before the last session of mediation, in advance he gave us the date, I think it was the 2nd of March. Is he aware of a date for the second round of mediation?
Just for clarification, mediation is ongoing and has been ongoing since the date that we met in London. It's an ongoing process.
So there's been more than one session of mediation?
It's not a question of session. There is a mediator that is working between the parties.
You told us, Councillor Jordan, that mediation took place on the 2nd of March. I'm only asking you whether there's been another meeting between the parties or their representatives. It's not particularly complicated or meant to trip you up.
I hope the answer was clear. We continue to mediate. It's that we don't have to sit in a room to mediate. There is a mediator who is going between the parties, and it continues. That's the process that we're in. It's not a question of another meeting in another room. That's not the process. I hope that's helpful.
On Chillerton and Rookley School, obviously the Cabinet member isn't here, but would it be possible for us to write to the Cabinet member to ask for an update? Because obviously the decision was to postpone the decision and look at all possible outcomes with Chillerton and Rookley. But obviously, as of May, schools have to make their provisions available for the subsequent year. So would it be possible for her to, bring an update to us and ask that question?
I believe that will be at Cabinet in May. So that question can be asked there and will be asked there. Yeah, thank you. Forward plan. So has anybody spotted anything, pages 13 to 20 on the forward plan, that would benefit from a corporate scrutiny eye on in advance or in the future, rather? Nothing I spotted. Anybody? Councillor Quirk.
I think the outcome of the consultation on the future of Chillerton and Rookley Primary School is a very emotive subject still in certain areas. I would have thought that's something that we should hear about before. That should have some pre-event scrutiny.
Okay. Anything from anybody else? No? Okay, work programme. So really just to note that we have included from the last meeting freedom of information requests, fees and charges, and asset management property rationalisation. Anybody got any questions or issues about that? No? Marvellous. Oh, Councillor Speak.
In relation to that, but I do have a question in relation to the work programme. And that is this, that I and other councillors were extremely concerned by the decision to exclude questioning by councillors at the now adjourned Cabinet meeting on this Thursday and at the now adjourned meeting of full council. And I would ask that the decision that was taken, which is arguably contrary to our constitution, be examined by the Corporate Scrutiny Committee on the work plan, and that it be called in, I think the expression is, and the people responsible for that duty attend, for that decision attend.
I was going to come to that in item 7, so we'll note that for item 7. In terms of the process, I think we'd have to do some, Paul, what's your...
I would have thought it needed to go on the work plan, that's all, but perhaps it can be a separate call-in.
Who's got the microphones on? Everybody turn the mics off.
Chairman, it wouldn't be subject to the call-in because there's been no formal decision of Cabinet taken to actually not have public question time. There were issues about whether or not it was a special or an extraordinary meeting, and I think that's some of the issues that will be resolved hopefully in the forthcoming discussions about the revised date for Cabinet and full council.
Sorry, but Mr. Thistlewood, I don't agree with that because my both Councillor Quirk's written question and my written question were rejected on the advice that it was not an agenda item. So it was pulled. The fact that the meeting has now been adjourned does not affect the decision that our questions were rejected. And I would like to know why that decision was taken, and it can be told to the committee now, or it can be told by way of call-in. But I think the Corporate Scrutiny Committee has power in the Constitution to look at decisions of staff and decisions of Cabinet members and councillors that relate to the work of this council. And that puts it firmly and squarely within the scope of this committee. And I repeat, I want it to be called in and dealt with by this committee.
We can certainly ask for an item be placed on the agenda for the next meeting to cover that, Chairman.
Excellent. Anything else on the work programme?
I understand that there's discussions going on between what was Sandown Zoo and the council about extending their facilities there. If that is a decision that's being made, I think that's something that there doesn't seem to have been any consultation with the Bay, and I think that should come before scrutiny at the relevant time. And I don't know what the relevant time is because I haven't been party to any of the information about it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'll say it again. It appears that there are discussions between the council and what was Sandown Zoo, but it's got a new name and I can't remember what it is. To expand into areas that are currently the resources of the council. Maybe someone can confirm that that's the case, but if it is, there doesn't seem to have been consultation with the Bay town and parish councils, and which I think there should be personally. And if that's going to, there is a serious intention to do something there, that affects the whole of that redevelopment of the culvert area, and I think that should come before this committee.
So could we ask for an update at the next corporate scrutiny meeting?
My understanding is there's a paper going to Cabinet in May. So there'll be an opportunity there. And my understanding, I've not seen the paper yet. It's just been, I think it's got to be with Mr. McDonald by Friday, I think. So I've not seen the finished paper yet. It's in draft at the moment. So excuse me. And that's the first stage. So it's just the first stage of that process, and then there'll be. So I sounds to me like there will be opportunity for further consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. Anything else on the work programme? No. So item 6, council website, which I believe is Claire Shand dialing in remotely. How appropriate for the website.
Oh, good evening, councillors, and thank you very much indeed for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you about my favourite subject, the council's website. Can I just check you can all hear me okay, just before I carry on? Excellent, fabulous, thank you. So I'm pleased to say that in terms of the work that's been underway during this last 12 months as to what we call phase 2 is now complete. And as some of the committee members will already know, there have been 2 demonstrations of the new website and its functionality, which has thus far provided us with some good feedback in terms of its design, layout, and accessibility requirements that we set out to achieve as part of the project. And as you will have heard me say on a number of occasions, this is not an ICT project, but with a lot of ICT input required alongside our communications team and the services themselves, for whom the content and the business processes belong as part of the overall website, website face. So it has been a complete rebuild from the ground up, specifically to address accessibility legislation requirements, also particularly to make it much more device friendly. So the ability to use it on an iPad or a mobile phone, and for that to be automatically adjustable for people to view the things that they would like to access. Continuing in our quest really for it to be a transaction focused website, so that people have the ability to go and do the things that they need the website for quickly and easily. And as a result of that, we have what we call to action buttons, which clearly directs people to the activities that they want to undertake. And of course, perhaps most importantly, is that the content has been rewritten in the areas that have been reviewed thus far, so that we can be confident that the information is easily understandable and is concise, and is very much more focused around the user journey, And that's also been based on the analytics and feedback that we received from our customers as to how and what they wanted to see by way of design. So I'm really pleased that we have been able to get to this point of being able to be launch ready. For those of you who will have been party to those demonstrations, you will have heard me say that we took a decision to postpone the go live of the new website due to factors outside of the control of the project itself. One of those being the major firewall upgrade that took place last weekend. There was much preparation that needed to go into that piece of work to make sure that the council's infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, and of course its information that's held on it is kept safe and secure, particularly in light of increased cybersecurity threats. And indeed increased, penetration activities by those who wish to try and gain access to systems, which are being seen more and more by local authorities. And although that piece of work has been completed, one of the aspects that's still to be finalised is that there will be a completely new server for the website itself as part of that upgrade, which is just being finalised in terms of its build and testing. And of course, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, there's lots of other follow-up work post to that new system go live, which aren't necessarily visible from a customer's point of view, but creates lots of work behind the scenes to make sure that all of our business systems continue to operate effectively. And the second issue that we've had is that we've got Amy changing, our waste provider, changing company in terms of the delivery of its contact centre provision. And that unfortunately has clashed with the timescales that we had planned for go live. So we decided that rather than put a website up only for it to be taken down or potentially have to be taken down again as a result of these ongoing works, we felt it was far better to make sure that once we go live, we were confident that it was going to be fully working for the public. So as I say, feedback that we've received thus far has been very promising about those new pages and the new areas and the new look and feel of the website itself. And as you can imagine, we're now well into, now that it's post 1st of April, we're well into phase 3 of the website. And as I mentioned, because of the significant amount of technical build that we've had to do in that first phase, we had to bring all of the various modules that support the website to what we call a minimum viable product, just so that we could get that new website live. So the work that's going on at this moment in time is to bring those modules up to full specification and accessibility requirements as a key element for going forward. Next in line in terms of services is the council tax business rates, your council area of the current website, and closely being followed by waste and recycling. And then we'll be looking later in the year to pick up on children's services as those 3 key big areas of public traffic on the website. Of course, that's not all of the council areas, and we'll be looking at how we can tuck in between other areas to review in between time. And now we've got that technical platform live, and we've got the launch going, you'll see that there's a much better transition of new pages going live, because as soon as they've been reviewed and completed, they can go live for the public to utilise and provide us feedback with. So we're still in the process, obviously, of undertaking all that preparation for working with the new service areas and making sure that we've set out the timescales and the planning required to get that all underway. One of the key things we'll have to do also in this phase is to make sure that we've got the necessary resources that are required going forward to make sure that we don't end up in the same position of having invested a lot of time and effort in developing a website only for it to be underinvested or not having the resources available to maintain it effectively. And so that will be a key thing that we will need to be determining as part of the project towards the end of the year. And I guess one of the other challenges that we do have is around accessibility, meeting the accessibility legislation requirements, not in the sense of the website itself, just in terms of the enormity of the work that needs to be done. We have some 20,000 documents that the council has and people can access through our document library. Not all of those are needed by the website, but a majority of them are. And that is quite a labour-intensive process to review completely into accessible language. And some of those documents are indeed technical by nature, have some are legally driven, which presents additional challenges for making sure that you don't lose the context of specific documents that have those specific requirements. And so we are looking to establish an additional project alongside the website project to pick up on some of those things. Other than that, I'm feeling fairly positive. I hope everybody else is feeling positive, and that we can go from strength to strength. And of course, the new website, once it does go live, has a feedback mechanism. We're going to be encouraging people to give us feedback. The whole point of it being a beta website is so that we can continuously improve, and as people give us feedback and tell us how they're finding it, we can make adjustments and amend accordingly. So happy to answer any questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Claire. Any questions for Claire around the website? I'm assuming most of you have done a demonstration of the new website and seen it is very much more resident focused and user friendly. Any questions? Oh, come on. Surely talking about a website gets everyone going. No?
I'd like to comment.
Make a comment, please do, Councillor Cook.
I did attend the sessions and I think it certainly does look a lot better than the existing website. The promise of what it will do is more than the actuality at this present time. Actually getting the search function to work properly to find things about the council where previously, if you put in the constitution for the council, you get the last 20 years of the constitutions coming up and you can't find the one that actually matters. So there's sort of things like that it needs to sort of just work on, but that's the intention. So it's so far so good.
Excellent. Councillor Cherry, did you want to ask a question?
I was just, Claire, how do we back up? Is everything safely backed up? We talk about the website, but how's it all being backed up?
Yes, indeed. Thank you for the question. That's a really important one. And part of the upgrade work that was undertaken was to strengthen our resilience in terms of backup in that respect. So yes, there are backup systems in process in any case, but the recent works to upgrade were to make that more robust and also to increase our capacity for disaster recovery.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Drew.
Thank you. I was just wondering, what was the reason for choosing to have our own concrete servers, as it were, as opposed to going with a cloud AWS solution? Was that purely cost, or is it also about resilience, as you say?
That's a technical question for which I probably can't give a very intelligent answer, but I'll attempt to. I think that from our perspective, we have a combination of systems that are cloud-based and location-based to provide a degree of flexibility and resilience across our systems. I'm happy to ask Roger Brown, our strategic manager for ICT and digital services, for a more detailed explanation, if that would be helpful for you.
Thank you. Any further questions? No, I think you can stand down, Claire. Thank you
Fabulous.
very much. Thank you.
Thanks
I
very much
I
indeed.
did
Thanks
like
for
the
indulging me.
I did like the demonstration. It does make a lot of sense because what we've been working with hasn't been great, and I don't think it's particularly resident focused. So well done. Let's fingers crossed it goes as well as it should do. So moving on to the bit we all came for, which is a bit like going out for Sunday dinner and being told they've only got salad left. No, it's not on the agenda. I will allow, I think we'll try and get this to 15 minutes around the process because a couple of people have come to me before and quite rightly mentioned a couple of things around process. So those of you that made yourselves known that want to ask questions about process, please do. But please also be aware some of the questions, answers might not be available readily and may still require a written response. Who'd like to go first? Councillor Spink.
Please may the committee be told the reason, whilst I welcome it, I would like to know the reason, please, and can this committee be told the reason for withdrawing item 7 from the agenda and also withdrawing the dips from Cabinet and from full council?
Councillor Fuller.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Spink. There's been a lot of engagement with local members in the last few weeks about the island planning strategy, and I think it became fairly apparent when we were talking to members yesterday that more work needed to be done. I think we need to be able to make sure that we properly talk to members about the proposals that are outlined within. Not everybody was satisfied with a lot of the proposals, and further work needs to be done. I think the request came forward, and I think, Councillor Spink, that you were one of the members that suggested a delay because of some of the things that government are doing at the moment. I think we needed to listen to those responses. We have listened, and the response is that we are delaying it, not indefinitely, because I think members will be aware that the longer you delay us having an island plan, the longer we have no teeth to fight some of the more contentious planning applications that we will be facing in the future. So I think what we want to do is we wanted to press the pause button, look at the response that we've had back, talk to members more and find out really what the issues are so we can get further support for the local island plan when it comes back in the coming months. But thank you.
Thank you. May I just ask a supplementary? You mentioned, Councillor Fuller, that you referred to the potential changes in the law. My understanding is, and I've taken independent legal advice on this, my understanding is that if the planning legislation or the planning framework is changed, and in particular is changed, as has been indicated, to scrap, for want of a better expression, mandatory housing targets, and our draft plan is adopted prior to that change, as a matter of law, we would be bound by the mandatory target that we agreed in the draft island plan. Has the council sought legal advice as to that point? And if so, will that please be disclosed?
I think you make a very, very good point, Councillor Spink. And one of the reasons why I didn't respond to you as quickly as I normally would is because this is an issue that I want to have thoroughly investigated before we come back to members. So again, I have asked for that to be looked into, and we will get a response concerning that issue that you've raised. But I think it's a very important issue. You know, we're talking about a plan that is going to be used on the island for the next 15 years. We want to give people the right kind of certainty, and we need to get it right. And I think the questions you have raised, Councillor Spink, are appreciated, and we will ensure that a response is made concerning that and the feedback that comes back from the officers concerning those questions. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but I'm still not clear. Has the council sought legal advice, and will that legal advice be disclosed? I don't know the answer to those 2 points, which were my question.
Councillor Spink, I know that there was questions also within Task and Finish group as well that you'd be aware of, where a meeting was I think scheduled with yourself as chairman of the Task and Finish group, where I instructed officers to meet with you to discuss some of those QC questions that were raised. But again, that information is also being sought as well at the moment. Thank you.
Have you asked for legal advice in this matter, namely whether the dips would be bound by the agreement? I don't know, just yes or no. Have you asked for legal advice?
Yes.
You have, and have you got it?
No.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let's keep to the process. Thank you, Councillor Spink. Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Any further questions around the process? Councillor Quirk.
Whilst this document was circulated consistent with the Constitution, with several minutes to spare, actually being open and transparent, you need more than 5 days to actually look at this, take it in, go behind the scenes and look at any of the data that feeds into it, get time with planning officers who are up to their eyeballs in work at present, so it's not easy to do. And whilst it might be constitutionally correct, it's not ethically correct. And I think when this comes back, you actually need, whatever is the documents at the time, we need to actually do what is the right thing, not what the Constitution says. And you need to give people reasonable time to actually look at it and qualify it. And as was mentioned earlier, actually blocking questions from members and blocking questions from the public seems a particularly bad way to proceed if you're being open and transparent.
Thank you, Councillor Quirk. Do you want to respond, Councillor Fuller?
Thank you. As we know that the meeting at full council has been delayed, cabinet meeting has been delayed, so that will give time for members to be able to digest not only what is within the Ireland plan, but also some of the background papers as well. It's like looking at planning applications. You know, when I was a member of the planning committee, I used to like to look at the objections and the letters of support from residents as well. And I think from councillors' point of view, they have this entitlement to probe that information further, fully scrutinise it, and this is what I'm hoping this postponement will allow to happen. Members to be able to look at the plan and to be able to digest it, certainly with the uncertainty that members have raised with me in the last few days. I think it was inevitable, really, to admit it, that we didn't get it right, and we must ensure that this dialogue continues. Thank you.
Accept that. But if there is discussion going on, it is a fair likelihood that what's in here may actually be tweaked. And when you get the tweaked version, you need more than 5. Either it's got to come out with all of the changes highlighted in red or something, so you can find them, or you've got to give people more than 5 days to actually discover what's different, because it's a very big document. There's a lot of content, and you know, this is the tip of the iceberg. The information that sits behind this, like that, and you need to be able to go and look at it.
Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. MacLeod, who was in the gallery a bit earlier and asked an oral question of this committee, also attempted to ask a written question of the Cabinet for their meeting on Thursday that's not now going to take place. He was told he couldn't ask that because it wasn't on the agenda. I hope the Cabinet now realises how damaging that looks for them as well as the whole Council. Will the Cabinet now answer those questions, even if it has to be in writing?
I've no reason for not answering those questions. I think we need to be open, we need to be transparent, and I know there's been dialogue with Mr. MacLeod. I've spoken to Mr. MacLeod on several occasions, and I hope to continue to do that. You know, I've spoken to him by phone, as I have with Councillor Spinks's residents as well, that also have concerns about the Ireland plan. So I'm more than happy to do that, and I'm more than happy to be open and transparent about that. Thank you, Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. I'm only aware of the one because Mr. Cloud's my resident, and there may be a number of others who attempted to ask the Cabinet. So I think it would be helpful for everyone and for the reputation of the Council if the Cabinet were to seek out those questions seek out those people who were told they couldn't have an answer and now provide that answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Councillor.
If residents don't get the answer that they want, or they have a supplementary, come back to me. Give me a hard time. I need to be challenged. I need to be scrutinised. That's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Councillor Spink.
Chair. The draft island plan was not published with the papers for corporate scrutiny. And the draft island plan was not placed, and to my knowledge, it still isn't placed, on the corporate scrutiny webpage. Now that means that a member of the public who wants to ask questions at corporate scrutiny on the draft island plan would have rather a hard task in doing so, given that it's not on the webpage nor in the paper pack. Will you ensure, please, Councillor Fuller, that next time round it is disclosed in full with supporting evidence papers on the corporate scrutiny webpage?
I will have that conversation with officers to ensure that that can be done. I think we need to be open, we need to be transparent, and we need to make sure that members are able to see all of the information that we are all considering. It's an important decision. It's for the next 15 years. Let's get it right.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
So just a few things from the chair. I take your point, Councillor Spink, about it not being on the website, and it is important it's open and transparent. However, the number of written questions we received, unless something else is occurring, would imply that people have got hold of the information.
I anticipate.
Hang on, I've not finished yet.
A response.
No,
may I?
No, not yet. I will let me finish. So it is a good point, and it does need to go onto the website. One question I do have is that your point, Councillor Quirk, about it not being available early enough is a very good one. I am envisaging that not much will change other than housing numbers as a consequence of the white paper. So most of this information will be relevant until that point, and it is probably a good idea to have a new version with changes highlighted. And lastly, what do you see as the unintended consequences of the delay, Councillor Fuller? And I'll come back to you, Councillor Spink.
Thank you. The concern that I have is that the longer that we do not have a planning strategy in place, it does mean that the teeth are not as sharp for the planning committee in the future as quickly as we want them to be. I know, Councillor Spink, you raised an issue concerning an application in Wootton about an application that was being heard last Tuesday. And one of the concerns that you raised was that there were policies within the island plan that you quite liked, that you'd be able to use as an objection to that application, but you couldn't do it because the plan hadn't been adopted. The longer we leave that plan to be adopted, the more that we open ourselves up to being developed in a way that we can't control. And I think the island plan gives us that control that islanders need and want. It also gives the certainty that developers, residents also need as well. And that is why the island plan is so important. But it is also very important that we get it right. And if it takes a few months to get it right, then so be it. That needs to happen. You know, I know that there are residents that are still not happy with it, and we need to work to get that right. Thank you.
And the last 2 minutes to you, Councillor Spink.
If I may, please, just to answer, in part anyway, the suggestion that people managed to get, as it were, the plan in any event. That may be as a result of the fact that it was disclosed to parish councils, quite rightly, and some of those questions, I think, came from parish councillors. But also, once it's disclosed to parish councillors, then quite rightly, it's often disclosed to their parishioners. But that doesn't detract from the fact that it needs to be disclosed properly and officially, because one can't rely, as it were, on people being access it via the back door. The final matter, if I may, in response to Councillor Fuller's last answer is this, is that will Councillor Fuller now, given his concern that we're in the tilted balance, progress the motion that was passed by full council of several times ago, as it were, to contact those local authorities, of which I think there are 53, who are also in the tilted balance, and make a concerted effort of all 53 to lobby Parliament on this matter.
Thanks, Councillor Spink. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Councillor Spink. I can't remember precisely what the resolution to full council was, but certainly I think.
Your amendment.
Sorry, if I could be allowed to finish, please.
You can't remember your own amendment.
Well, it was about 6 months ago. And, you know, from my point of view, we will need to look at that again, and we will need to do what needs to be done. Obviously, it sounds like a good idea, but if it was my amendment, that was probably one of the reasons why. I think the reason that I don't know is because I don't know what was the amendment, whether it was passed, and within what context. I think it's a good way to pursue, but I wouldn't want to do that without the full support of members behind me. So I want to make sure that is all okay.
I must come back on that, Chair. I'm sorry to keep the meeting.
Briefly. Yeah,
Councillor Fuller, it was your motion to amend my motion. It wasn't a good idea, as you put it. I agree with it. It wasn't simply a good idea. It was your motion which was passed by full council. So it's not simply a good idea. It is something that you, as the portfolio holder, should have been doing a very long time ago. Now, will you get on with it, please?
So with the clock clicking around at 5:45, we did get some excitement out of that. Thank you, Councillor Spink. Thank you, Councillor Fuller.
Councillor Quigley, I'm quite happy to respond. You know, we've had the island plan dormant for a very, very long time. We are chasing up. I've been working tirelessly for the last year to try to get things up together and to get us to the position that we are now. I will do everything that I can to further that. You know that I will do that, Councillor Spink. We've had conversations. Would you not interrupt me, please?
So if we, on the matter of it's probably easiest to say that we'll go back to the motion. It's probably best to just refresh yourself with that motion.
Absolutely.
Because it is, I don't expect any of us will all remember motions we put to full council. So if we can agree to that. And Councillor Jones-Evans, I believe you were going to make a point.
No, thank you. It was just listening to Councillor Spink earlier and saying that the island strategy wasn't part of your committee papers. And I just gone online and pretended to be a regular person of the public. And though the island strategy is linked there as a PDF, it's actually linked to a different committee report. So I think it's been mislabelled.
Okay.
So it seems like there's just an error there rather than anything else going on. It actually links to the response to the recommendation of the draft island planning strategy task and finish group.
Okay.
So,
it may,
but it's labelled island planning strategy PDF. So sorry, I just was trying to just be helpful there.
It may have been an error, but the effect of it is that someone going to the corporate scrutiny webpage to ask a question would not be able to find it. That's the point, and the public need to be able to participate, Councillor Jones-Evans.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not suggesting anything else. I was just really trying to be helpful. I don't quite understand your attack there, Councillor Spink.
I think if we leave, I think if
not my committee, I'm not a member of the committee. I was just trying to be helpful. So I'll be quiet.
I think we can leave it there because I think we've got many more exciting times over the island plan. Thank you for keeping that to time. Sorry, Wendy, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair. It was just on the point about the motion at full council, really. Given that the motion at full council was agreed and there was an outstanding action, it will be taken forward by Councillor Fuller in conjunction with Chris Ashman, Director of Regeneration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. So that takes us on to item 8. Post-decision scrutiny, which is what we're about, and it's the petition for traffic lights at Forest Road, Whitehouse Road, where we've seen some serious incidents over the years. Councillor Jordan, would you like to take us through? I assume it's down to you.
Chair, thank you. You have the the papers in front of you showing the two options. I'm not going to go through them. You can read them all. I'm sure you have. They span a couple of pages, so it's not extensive reading. Our decision has been to adopt option 1, which is on page 42 of your papers, which is essentially making improvements to the junction and to undertake, which we are doing island-wide, a speed review. So essentially we have implemented some safety measures, some coloured anti-slip. We've altered the sign, not altered, we've improved the signage, and we are in discussions with landowners to allow us to undertake a topographical survey, which would enable if it were allowed to be undertaken and so designate, a wider visible display of the junction. That's the immediate works and option that we've taken on. Longer term, we are talking with landowners to acquire land to adjust the crossing instead of a crisscross to be a staggered junction. It is also part of the ongoing speed review, and that at this current moment in time is our approach to the issues at this junction that we've seen so far. They're detailed in the papers that you have. I won't go on to option 2, but just to point out that you will see that an installation of signals at this junction, which it isn't recommended by highways engineers, is around £500,000. It's astonishingly expensive. So at this moment in time, on safety measures, we've intervened and we continue to intervene, trying to make the junction safer. It's important for all of us. It's still one of the top 10 on our safety intervention lists. And that's probably all I need to add to the paper, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Any questions? Councillor Luciani and Councillor Downer.
I just wanted to know, I understand about the traffic lights, although you can't put price on safety. Why is it not advantage to have those? What was the reason that they said no? The traffic lights, why did Island Rose say it's not a good idea?
Look, I'm not an expert on this, and Island Rose couldn't make it tonight, but I'm told that there are concerns about queuing at red lights with visibility quite low. There are some difference in levels there. They're not always the best option, and you can make traffic safety improvements without these kind of abrupt solutions. And in terms of the cost, that's a consideration, but it's not a consideration of road safety, but it's it's a reality check. It's £500,000. You'll notice perhaps that the most recent traffic accident there in 2019, they may not be the most recent, but the one that we're referring to where there's some fatalities, and which prompted the petition that was raised by Councillor Palin, actually, who's here tonight, that the cause of the accident wasn't the junction, it was a driver error, as opposed to a non-visibility of the junction. Even though the outcome is what it wasn't as a result of the junction, but of driver error. And we're never going to rule out driver error in terms of achieving safety. So there's a number of interventions we can do. We've done some. Anti-slip is a big help at junctions. We have them in other junctions as well. Changing the signage, we can signal, not traffic signal, but signal the junction coming up. If we can improve the visibility, that will improve it, and we can monitor it from there. So there are reasons why the traffic lights weren't recommended. Yeah.
Sorry, who was next? It was Downer, Councillor Downer.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Jordan, on page 62, there's some recommendations, recommendation 6. And it says, in the short term, it's recommended that action taken to realign the hedge to improve visibility. But it's understood that it might be cost prohibitive as a short-term solution. And additional measures to highlight the junction and reduce vehicle speeds could be installed to support these changes. Could you sort of say why the hedge realignment would be cost prohibitive, please? Thank you.
I'm not sure how prohibitive it would be, Councillor Downer. The problem is one of land ownership rather than the actual hedges themselves. But there has been some trimming back of the hedges already. The issue is visibility at that, in my view, at that junction, coming from off of Forest Road onto Forest Road. That appears to be where the issue lies, and cars pull out onto the main road, which are it's a 50-mile-an-hour road. That may well get adjusted from the speed review. There are other ways of slowing traffic speed down, and we do implement them in certain areas of the island already.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear more than just trimming hedges is being done. That was committed by the previous cabinet member. But obviously option 3 within the 2020 November report by Island Roads obviously was about computer modelling of traffic signals. 2 months after the previous administration made the decision just to cut the hedges, the coroner said in her opinion action should be taken to prevent further deaths, and I believe you or your organisation have the power to undertake these actions. So will the cabinet member not also look at computer modelling for traffic signals? Obviously, yes, there is a cost there, but we cannot put a cost on lives, like Councillor Luciani has just said. And the computer modelling will show whether these traffic lights would or wouldn't work, and then we can go off the basis of facts. Thank you.
So we're recommending option 1, which is to make the best improvements we can at the junction. Visibility is seen as a major part of increasing safety. Traffic lights do increase danger in certain circumstances. You have to remember that the lane coming onto Forest Road it's not quite a single lane, but it's not far off, and traffic will be queuing on that road. You come down the hill, the visibility on traffic that you don't expect to be there but will be there when you arrive on a de-restricted speed road is quite dangerous in itself. So the immediate idea that traffic lights are the solution are not necessarily the solution to the safety. It's a whole range of issues: visibility, safety, speed. So that's why we haven't considered modelling what traffic lights do.
But that's the purpose of the computer modelling, is to assess if it would have those issues. There's multiple options with the traffic lights. You could have a constant green along Forest Road until you have the traffic lights on either side sensing there's vehicles there. Then it temporarily turns red, and then those vehicles can cross and come out. That's why I was asking if you'd undertake computer modelling to assess those options and what possibilities there are there. Thank you.
Councillor Payne, it's not at this time something that we're considering.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jordan. Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any further questions on the traffic lights proposal? No, okay. That leads us on to members' question time, of which we have 15 minutes. So, any hands up? Councillor Medland.
I haven't really thought this one through very much, but I'm a bit concerned about the current constitution, or should that be plural? There seems to be some confusion at the moment about which version we're actually using. There was some news of an update on April the 1st, and I was wondering if perhaps acting CEO could give us an update. And I'm wondering, can we get it all clarified next month in May at the annual meeting? Because I think that'd be the appropriate place to get it cleared up.
With your permission, Chair, thank you. Yes, thank you for that, Councillor Medland. There was an updated version of the Council's constitution that was published on the 1st of April. That included some updates that had been agreed at Cabinet in November and January. It also included some typographical updates that had been picked up as well. In the various drafting of updates to the Constitution, some parts of it have come out of alphabetical order. So, for example, in Part 3 of the Constitution, Section 6, I think it is, that outlined the responsibilities and roles of the various committees, the Planning Committee ended up coming before the Pension Board. So we had a section that was Planning Committee, Pension Board, and then went back to Planning Committee. There was nothing missing from the Constitution. It ended up out of order. That has now been corrected. But I absolutely take your point, Councillor Medland, that there are some issues with the Constitution that do need to be resolved and will be brought before full council for consideration at the annual meeting.
Councillor Spink.
I may have misheard you, but did you say that the Constitution was amended to take into account decisions taken at Cabinet?
No, full council. Sorry, full council.
I think you did say Cabinet.
Oh, sorry, I meant full council.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, apologies.
No, not at all. I just wanted to clarify because it had been amended in order to take into account Cabinet decisions. That would be an improper amendment.
That can't happen.
No.
Cabinet can't
Well, it shouldn't
take
happen.
those decisions.
No. Thank you.
Any further questions at all of any nature? No. Well, that brings us to the end of another corporate scrutiny meeting. Thank you all for what could have been, even without the island plan being on the agenda, could have been very heated. Thank you for keeping it under control and being respectful of each other. Every meeting is a representation of us as councillors, and at the end of the day, we're all here to best represent our island residents. So thank you for keeping it as well mannered as we could do. So enjoy the rest of your evenings. Thank you very much.